Now, this is a global illumination pass of the foreground tree from View. I have in this file a bunch of the alpha channels that View supplies us with. We get the tree trunk, we have the terrain, we have the bushes, the leaves on the tree, all that stuff separated. In this particular render, I didn't really spend a lot of time on the shader for the ground, the dirt and rock, just because that wasn't really going to be visible in the final shot. But as you can see from the list of alpha channels, even each individual plant type is listed in separate alpha channels. So there's a whole lot of power there to do basically whatever you want with regard to matting out your particular objects. So I'm going to try and put this into my map painting in Photoshop. Since it does have the global illumination shadows, the shadow quality is going to be a lot nicer than the previous render that I put in as a stand-in. The GI render is quite a long render. It's a little time consuming just because there is a lot of geometry in these scenes. But overall, it has a lot of potential. Now, using some of these trees from the View library isn't necessarily the best use for a foreground tree, but for a teaching device, it really is a good example because it clearly lets me illustrate all of the alpha channels that come with the tree, and then it's pretty obvious with those alpha channels what you can do. So it's just a matter of knowing that that tool is there at your disposal, and then utilizing it in appropriate ways. Now I'm just looking at the tree, trying to figure out how we can improve the look. I think one of the issues is edge quality, and as I mentioned before, CG is typically quite sharp. And then overall, maybe later on we can get into the tree trunk and maybe try to get that to look more real. So I'm going to soften this a little bit. Usually 0.3 or 0.4 is a good blur amount, generally speaking, on a 2K matte painting. If you're working at 4K, it's a slightly different issue, slightly different numbers. Now, as always, I've been taking some of my background haze color and applying it. I do want to have a little bit of haze on this tree, I've decided, but not a whole lot. And hopefully this background haze color is also going to help bring the color palette of the tree a little bit out of the greens and into the magentas, just because we have so much magenta in the shot that it kind of feels like the predominant air color is in the shadows, at least, is a little on the cool side. So I'm just going to repo the tree, see if it helps for framing a little bit better. Push it off to the side. So now, when I was out at Lake Merritt, I took some photos of some tree trunks that were similar to the sketch that I had in the concept art. And I did this because I figured that sometimes using these trees from the library, these CG trees, sometimes they don't look totally photorealistic up close. So I chose one of these trees that was pretty much all in the shadow. There's a little dapple of light at the base, which I'll try and get rid of later on. And it had a similar canopy to what I'm trying to achieve here in the matte painting. Now, even though the tree is bent to the right side in the photo, and the matte painting is bent to the left, I'm not paying attention to that right now. What I'm paying attention to more is the lighting angle on it. So because the lighting in the photograph is coming from the left, I do want to make sure that I keep consistency. then I can go in and I can warp the tree trunk in the photo and make it match, because I do want it bending inward. I don't really want the tree bending outward towards the outer frame, towards the top corner of the frame. So I'm just tweaking some of the edges here and getting rid of some of that grass that's left over from the photograph with the tree. My goal is to really just trying to get the tree trunks and the branches to work, and I wasn't too concerned with the leaves from the photograph. I'm going to try and use the leaves from the view render just as an exercise to show you how to let the breeze function move the leaves and move the little bushes with a slight bit of wind in view. So just warp the tree trunk into position. So now our lighting matches, and so does our curve in the tree trunk. You'll note that I moved everything over the foreground trees over to the left so that I could paint and adjust the edges of things when they were over far to the right. When I'm finished, I'm going to slide the tree back to its original position near the right edge of frame. But this way at least I'll have proper edge treatment in case in the future I decide to move the tree a little bit to the left or up or down or whichever way. So I'm going to turn on the crop, the 235 crop. This will let me see exactly how much of this tree we're going to see in the final shot. Curve it down a little bit, make it darker. I think that's better. And as I said, we'll slide this tree back over to the right to sit where it used to sit. So now if I choose in the future to move the tree over to the left a little bit for compositional reasons, we know that there's data there and we're not going to end up with absent pixels. So there's a little bit of dappled light here on the tree trunk, both here and on the bottom. Though I think it's kind of a nice little feature. It doesn't. What you can do to clean up edges like this is select the tree trunk, and then you can go into select and modify, and you can contract the selection. If you invert the contraction of 1 pixel or 2 pixels, then you can just go in and either erase with the eraser tool or matte it out without having to manually trace the entire thing. So here at the bottom, I'm just trying to finesse how the ground in the photograph meets up with the CG ground. And as I said before, the light on the bottom here, it's a little bit distracting, though it's kind of a beautiful little thing. I also changed the color a little bit cyan. And I'll do the same thing up at the top. I think the tree's gonna do it for now.